China has just said a preliminary investigation found Nvidia violated anti-monopoly law, and it happened on September 15th, 2025. This is not a distant courtroom drama. It touches the speed, cost, and availability of AI for anyone who trains, fine-tunes, or deploys modern models. If you use ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or Qwen, this can change the cost and timing of your next launch. Stay with me because I will show 3 real scenarios leaders are already pricing, plus a 60-second checklist you can use tomorrow. 1. The hidden nerve system of AI and why? One deal still echoes. Nvidia does not dominate only because it makes powerful chips. It dominates because it turned thousands of accelerators into a single instrument and kept that instrument in tune at scale. The overlooked piece in most headlines is the fabric that binds those machines into one cluster. That fabric is the difference between a chorus and noise. In 2020, Nvidia acquired Mellanox, whose InfiniBand and advanced Ethernet gear are the high-speed nerve pathways that let large training runs behave like one coordinated system. The deal gave Nvidia influence over both the compute engine and the connective tissue, then layered that hardware with libraries and tooling that reduce friction for developers. Today, China's market regulator said a preliminary investigation found Nvidia violated anti-monopoly law in connection with conditions related to that deal. Preliminary is the crucial word. It is not a final ruling, not a penalty, not a ban. It is a signal that deeper scrutiny has begun. When the most important AI compute supplier receives that signal in the second largest economy, buyers and partners revisit assumptions that looked settled last week. Timing multiplies the weight. Enterprises that treated last year as a pilot season are moving to production. Clouds have already committed multi-year capacity to anchor customers. Blackwell generation systems are expected to raise training throughput and stretch inference efficiency, and many roadmaps depend on those gains to hit budgets and release windows. The headline lands inside that reality and asks everyone to recalc. There is a policy map behind the press releases. Export rules fractured the market into region-specific SKUs and channels. Governments on both sides study the AI stack because the stack shapes growth, productivity, and security. That is why a preliminary finding is not just company news. It is a lever inside a larger negotiation about who gets how much compute, at what quality, and on what terms. What bends first when tight integration meets policy pressure, price, or time? 2. Inside the stack where integration becomes influence. Follow a single training step and the stakes become obvious. A token batch hits the accelerators, gradients appear, and those gradients must be exchanged quickly and precisely with every other worker. Repeat that cycle and you either maintain a fluent conversation across the cluster, or you accumulate tiny miscommunications that inflate into delays. Large models work only when 3 pillars rise together. First is sustained accelerator throughput. Second is collective communication that stays fast as you add nodes. Third is disciplined software that squeezes efficiency from both. Mellanox sits inside the second pillar. That is the zone where micro slowdowns become macro time losses and where reliability is either boring or very expensive. Now the software gravity. CUDA, CUDNN, NCCL, TensorRT, Triton, and adapters matured through years of optimization. Porting a production pipeline to a new accelerator is never copy and paste. Engineers retune kernels, reorganize memory, validate numerics, and rebuild deployment glue. Devices that look equivalent on paper can trail in practice until software catches up. The effect is switching cost. That is one reason integrated stacks hold ground even when rivals make strides. Policy fragmentation adds another layer. Export rules and regional strategies have sliced the market into a patchwork of product variants, licenses, and channels. A decision in one jurisdiction bleeds into others because supply is tight and demand does not slow. Providers rebalance inventory, adjust price ladders, reserve racks, and rewrite support timelines. A single change is minor. A sequence becomes friction that teams must plan around. Reliability and determinism at scale are not luxuries. Spread a trillion-parameter model across many racks and rare events become routine. A flaky link or small timing drift can erase hours of progress. Tight integration stabilizes the system and is valuable to buyers. That same integration also concentrates influence. 3. When policy meets product and your week actually changes, abstract headlines become real the moment they touch a calendar, a budget, or a demo. Imagine a video generation startup that promised minutes-long continuity with stable characters and camera motion. The team needs 8 uninterrupted weeks on high-memory accelerators stitched by InfiniBand. If capacity tightens in their region, or if instance families reshuffle, the launch slides or the model shrinks. Users do not read policy, they read wait times. They notice longer render queues, lower defaults, and credit packs that do not stretch as far. A plan that assumed Tuesday becomes next month. Consider a robotics rollout across distribution centers. Inference lives at the edge, but weekly fine-tunes keep behavior aligned with messy reality. If burst windows are throttled or prices tick up, the cadence slips. The fleet still runs, yet interventions climb and the dashboard shows softer gains. A pharmaceutical discovery group faces a similar constraint. Graph and sequence models are sensitive to communication jitter. If a provider swaps fabric gear or rebalances clusters, the team retunes backends, changes batch sizes, and adjusts checkpoint strategies. A 2% efficiency loss sounds tiny, but on a large multi-week run, it can add a 5- to 6-figure cost and days to delivery. Milestones move. Spend curves rise. Creators feel the same forces in miniature. A platform hedging risk nudges users toward off-peak rendering or ships smaller defaults. A subset of creators experiment with compact architectures that capture most of the look at lower cost. Enterprises building knowledge agents take a structured path. The CIO asks for CPU fallbacks for basic tasks, a secondary accelerator where latency allows, and a modest capacity reservation to reduce exposure to spot spikes. Even classrooms and labs notice. Educators renting short training windows see wait lists and spot prices jump mid-term. The choice becomes smaller models or fewer experiments. Progress continues, but the surface area for new ideas shrinks. Users judge experience, not policy memos. If policy pressure spreads, do builders change tools or do they change habits first? 4. Signals from the field and what the pros are really thinking. Experts read the same signal through the different lenses, and the collage is useful. Policy analysts see a negotiation tool and a precedent builder. A preliminary finding creates room to request disclosures, steer behavior, and shape expectations while leaving space for a cooperative outcome. The AI stack is now strategically visible to governments, so language will be careful and timing deliberate. Adjust incentives without needless escalation. HPC architects translate news into utilization and dead time. Tight integration across silicon, fabric, firmware, and libraries reduces synchronization penalties that waste money. If remedies in one market weaken that integration, clusters there might give up a few percentage points of efficiency. 2% sounds small until it stretches a 2-week training run by several days and pushes a release into a different quarter. Architects price time the way financiers price capital. Venture investors watch for wedges and fragility. Startups that make heterogeneous fleets pleasant to use gain relevance. Compilers that generate quality kernels across backends, communication libraries that cut network chatter, observability that reveals bottlenecks, and schedulers that keep clusters busy are levers that convert uncertainty into optionality. Boards will ask portfolio companies how quickly they can move a workload, what quality would be retained after a switch, and how predictable the migration path really is. Enterprise buyers tighten procurement hygiene. They ask providers to document multi-vendor fleets, burst rules, priority tiers, credit programs, and migration support. They request parity guides that show how to move workloads without month-long refactors. The short-term cost is paperwork. The medium-term benefit is a market where no single supplier can quietly stall an entire roadmap. Safety talk widens too. It is not only about model behavior, it is about infrastructure power and concentration risk. That broader view pushes standards and open tooling forward because portability becomes a form of safety you can bank. We covered the context, the stack, and how day-to-day life bends. Next comes the scenario menu and the action plan. 5. The next 90 days with playbooks, pivots, and wildcards. It is too early to declare a single outcome, but realistic paths are visible. One path is narrow behavioral remedies. Regulators request commitments around interoperability, transparency, and access to certain networking products, paired with periodic reporting. Shipments continue under clearer rules. Procurement warms up. Teams return to normal cadence after a short pause. A second path is wider remedies with monitoring. Obligations expand to bundling practices, documentation that helps rivals integrate, and longer review windows on sensitive releases. Deals move forward, but legal review becomes routine in significant contracts. Some customers lock capacity earlier to avoid surprises. Engineers test portability to move without losing months if a region tightens. A third path combines financial penalties with stricter oversight if violations are confirmed after deeper investigation. Channel strategy in China becomes more constrained. Some buyers default to dual vendor plans. Global suppliers rebalance inventory. None of these paths ends the AI build-out. They change the slope and the comfort level of buyers who must de-risk plans without stalling momentum. Parallel policy movement matters. If a cooling period or a narrow carve-out in export rules appears near an antitrust resolution, that hints at choreography between tools of statecraft. If rules tighten, expect headlines about data center sales, model training thresholds, and region-specific SKUs. Builders can prepare regardless by going on an efficiency offensive. Mixture of experts reduces active parameters per token. Distillation turns a large teacher into an effective student. Quantization preserves quality at lower precision and cuts memory pressure. Compiler advances fuse collectives and schedule kernels more intelligently. Smart routing pushes non-critical requests to cheaper accelerators while reserving premium silicon for tasks that truly need it. Here's the 60-second hedge checklist for teams that want to act without pausing roadmaps. Reserve a small burst window in a secondary region. Identify one workload to run on an alternative accelerator with acceptable quality. Quantize or distill one model this week for a meaningful cost reduction. Date stamp receipts in internal briefings and track capacity quotes. Document a preemption and migration policy with your cloud. Preliminary finding today, investigation continues, then remedies or fines. Plan across all three, not just one. We tease scenarios and a checklist. You have both in hand. Today is a reminder that AI is not only math and code. It is also infrastructure power, market structure, and the quiet agreements that decide who moves first and who waits. Nvidia's integration of silicon, fabric, and software helped unlock a decade of breakthroughs. That same integration now draws sharper scrutiny because the world understands how much rides on a single stack. China's announcement is a preliminary finding, not a final verdict, but it is a loud one. Treat it as a rehearsal for resilience. Audit dependencies. Make one workload portable. Learn techniques that stretch every token and every watt. If you create, test a smaller model that delivers most of the quality at a fraction of the price. If you lead, set a target this week to buy time, not just capacity. The future does not slow. Build with eyes open and momentum intact.